The morning sun broke through the clouds over Outpost Epsilon, casting long shadows across the prefabricated buildings of the human settlement. Dr. Alan Pierce yawned as he walked toward the lab, his coffee mug warming his hand against the cool morning air. 6 months on Novaterra, and he still wasn't used to the shorter days. "Morning, Doc," called Sam from the security checkpoint. "Anything exciting planned for today?" Alan shook his head. "Just the usual. Soil samples from the Eastern Valley. Not exactly groundbreaking stuff." "Better than guard duty," Sam replied with a smile. Alan continued toward his lab when the alarm began to sound. The high-pitched wail echoed across the compound, causing him to spill hot coffee on his hand. He cursed under his breath and turned toward the perimeter fence where red lights flashed. "Movement in Sector 4. Sam's voice crackled over the speakers. "All personnel return to secure areas immediately." Alan squinted toward the fence line. Through the morning mist, he could make out a large shape moving at the edge of the dense alien forest. His heart began to pound. Everyone at Outpost Epsilon knew what lived in those woods. The Vextari. Since humans had settled on Novaterra 2 years ago, they had lost 17 people to the massive predatory aliens. The creatures stood nearly 8 feet tall, with armored scales and razor-sharp claws that could tear through standard body armor. They were smart, fast, and merciless hunters. "Pierce, get inside now," Sam shouted from the watchtower. But Alan stood frozen, his scientific curiosity overriding his fear. The shape at the forest edge was definitely a Vextari, but it wasn't charging. It seemed to be ... hesitating. "It's carrying something," Alan said into his cum unit. 3 security officers ran past him, pulse rifles raised. Alan followed at a safe distance, ignoring Sam's continued orders to take shelter. The Vextari moved closer to the fence, its massive frame now clearly visible. Iridescent scales shimmered across its body as sunlight hit them. But what caught Alan's attention was the small bundle cradled in its front limbs. "Hold fire," ordered Lieutenant Karen Bell, raising her hand to the security team. "Something's not right." The alien stopped 20 meters from the fence. Its yellow eyes scanned the humans, focusing briefly on each weapon pointed in its direction. Then, with surprising gentleness, it placed the bundle it carried on the ground. "What is it doing?" whispered one of the guards. The Vextari made a low rumbling sound, then used one claw to push the bundle closer to the fence. It took 2 steps back, eyes still fixed on the humans. "I think," Alan said slowly, "it wants us to take that." Karen looked at him like he was crazy. "It's a trap. They're intelligent hunters. They use bait. Then why not just attack? We're standing right here," Alan countered. Before anyone could stop him, he moved toward the fence. "Pierce, stand down." Karen shouted. Alan raised his hands to show he wasn't armed and continued forward slowly. The Vextari watched him, but made no aggressive moves. When he reached the fence, he could finally see what the bundle was. "It's a cub," he gasped. "A baby." Vextari. The small creature lay wrapped in what looked like woven plant fibers. It wasn't moving much, and even from several meters away, Alan could see a deep gash along its side. The wound was fresh and seeping a dark blue fluid. "It's injured," he called back to the others. The adult Vextari made that rumbling sound again, louder this time. It pushed its clawed hand against its own chest, then pointed to the cub, and finally extended its arm toward Alan. "I think it wants us to help," Alan said. Amazed, Karen approached cautiously, her rifle still raised. "That makes no sense. These things have killed our people. Why would it trust us with its young?" "I don't know," Alan admitted, "but I'm going out there." "Absolutely not," Karen replied firmly. Their argument was interrupted when Melissa Carter, The outpost's chief medical officer pushed past them. "Move," she said simply, carrying her medical kit. Before anyone could stop her, Melissa punched in the access code and stepped through the small personnel gate in the fence. The Vextari tensed, its claws extending, but it didn't charge. Melissa knelt beside the cub and opened her kit. Significant laceration, signs of infection, she reported as if she were in her medical bay rather than meters away from a deadly predator. She glanced up at the adult Vextari. "Did you do this?" she asked, pointing to the wound. The creature shook its massive head in a surprisingly human gesture. "It understands you," Alan said in wonder, now standing at the gate. "Most predatory species understand basic communication," Melissa replied as she applied a gel to the cub's wound. "This little one needs surgery. I'm taking it to medical." The adult Vextari watched intently as Melissa gently lifted the cub. She turned and walked back toward the gate where Alan waited. The creature made no move to stop her dot once Melissa and the cub were safely inside the fence. The adult Vextari backed away slowly, eyes still fixed on its offspring. At the edge of the forest, it paused, made that rumbling sound once more, then disappeared into the trees. News of the strange encounter spread quickly through Outpost Epsilon. By evening, a crowd had gathered outside the medical facility where Melissa worked to save the cub's life. "Why would they give us their young?" asked Sam, now off duty and standing beside Alan. "Everything we know about Vextari says they're territorial and protective of their cubs." Alan shook his head. "I don't." "No, but this changes everything we thought we understood about them." Melissa emerged from the medical bay, looking tired but satisfied. "The cub will live. Whatever caused that wound introduced a toxin into its system, but I was able to neutralize it." "What happens when it recovers?" Karen asked, arms crossed. "We return it to the monsters that hunt our people?" Alan was about to respond when his comm unit beeped. "Pierce here." "Doctor, you need to come to the north perimeter," came an urgent voice. "There's another one, another Vextari with a cub." Alan looked at Melissa in surprise. "It's happening again." "No," said Sam, checking his tablet. "It's happening everywhere. We're getting reports from all 4 human settlements on Nova Terra. The Vextari are bringing us their wounded young." Alan stared out the window toward the alien forest as the sun set behind it. "We need to understand why," he said quietly. "What do they know about us that we don't know about ourselves?" 6 weeks had passed since the first Vextari cub arrived at Outpost Epsilon. Now the medical bay looked more like a nursery than a hospital. 32 cubs of various ages filled the expanded space, each one brought to the humans by adult Vextari. Alan walked between the rows of special beds Melissa had designed for the young aliens. He stopped to check on the first cub, now fully recovered and growing quickly. "You're getting big, aren't you?" he said softly. The cub made a chirping sound and reached out with its small clawed hand. Alan had learned this was a sign of recognition, not aggression. "Talking to them like they're puppies again?" Melissa asked as she entered the room with her tablet. Alan smiled. "They respond to it. Their hearing is more sensitive to tone than we first thought." "Well, the brass isn't happy about our new daycare operation," Melissa said. "The general called this morning. They're sending someone from Earth, a specialist, Dr. Kate Summers, pediatric xenobiologist, arriving tomorrow." Melissa checked the monitors above one of the smaller cubs. "They want to know why this is happening." "And honestly, so do I." Alan nodded. The situation made no sense. Outside the settlements, Vextari were still deadly predators. Just last week, 2 researchers who ventured too far into the forest never returned. Search teams found only blood and torn equipment. Yet here were the Vextari, bringing their young for humans to heal Dot the next morning. Alan met Dr. Kate Summers at the landing pad. She was younger than he expected, with short red hair and bright eyes that suggested constant curiosity. "Dr. Pierce," she said, extending her hand, "I've read all your reports. Fascinating situation you have here." "Call me Alan," he replied as they walked toward the medical facility. "And yes, it's unlike anything we've encountered before." Kate stopped walking when they entered the medical bay. Her eyes widened at the sight of so many Vextari cubs. "I've only seen adults in videos. The young are almost cute." "Don't let the guards hear you say that," Alan said with a small laugh. "They're still not comfortable with our guests." Kate moved to the nearest cub and examined it carefully, keeping a safe distance from its claws. What was wrong with this one? "Respiratory infection," Melissa said, joining them. "It could barely breathe when it arrived 3 weeks ago." Kate's eyebrows rose. 3 weeks? That's remarkable recovery time, based on what we know of their physiology. "That's the strange part," Alan explained. "They all recover faster than they should. We've documented healing rates at least 3 times what would be expected." Kate spent the rest of the day examining the cubs and reviewing Melissa's medical data. By evening, the 3 doctors sat in the small conference room, surrounded by tablets and holographic displays. "It doesn't make sense," Kate said, pushing her hair back in frustration. "Their cellular regeneration rates are off the charts compared to our baseline data for Vextari physiology." Lieutenant Gregory Bell entered the room without knocking. "Another one just arrived at the west gate. Looks like it has some kind of burn on its back." Melissa stood immediately. "I'll handle it. I'm coming too," Kate said. "I want to see the handoff process." At the perimeter fence, an adult Vextari waited. This one was larger than most they had seen, with darker scales and a scar across its face. The cub it carried was making pained sounds that pierced the evening air. Melissa approached the gate, now following a routine they had established. "I am healer," she said slowly, placing her hand on her chest. "Give young one." The adult Vextari studied her, then extended its arms, offering the injured cub. As Melissa took the small creature, Alan noticed something strange. The cub's cries immediately softened when it touched Melissa's hands. Kate noticed too. "Did you see that?" she whispered. Alan nodded. The pain response decreased almost instantly. They brought the new cub to medical and treated the burn on its back. It was severe, but the little one remained calm as long as Melissa kept a hand on it. Later that night, Alan found Kate still in the lab running tests. "You should get some rest," he said. "You've been at it for hours." Kate didn't look up from her work. "I think I found something. Come look at this." On her screen was a scan of a cub's cellular structure before and after human contact. "See the mitochondrial activity?" she asked. "It jumps by almost 60% when in proximity to humans. And look at the neural pathways. They're forming new connections at an accelerated rate." Alan leaned closer. "What does it mean?" "I think—" Kate paused. "I think we're affecting them somehow. Something about human proximity is accelerating their healing. That's why they're bringing them to us," Alan said slowly. "But how would they know that?" Kate shrugged. "Maybe they've been watching. Used longer than we thought. Or maybe they discovered it by accident when they attacked humans. Either way, they know something about us that we don't know about ourselves." The next morning, they shared their findings with the outpost commander. Lieutenant Gregg sat with his arms crossed, looking skeptical. "So these things that have been hunting us are now using us as some kind of living medicine?" he asked. "Essentially, yes," Kate replied. "But I need to run more tests to understand the mechanism." Gregg shook his head. "Meanwhile, they're still killing our people outside the fence. 2 more researchers disappeared yesterday." "It's contradictory behavior," Alan admitted. But we need to understand it. You have 1 week, Greg said firmly. Then I'm sending these cubs back where they came from. We're not a daycare for predators. As Greg left, Kate turned to Alan. 1 week isn't enough time. Then we better work fast, he replied. Because something tells me understanding this connection is important not just for Nova Terra, but for humanity's place in the galaxy. Outside the window, 3 more Vextari could be seen approaching the fence, each carrying a small bundle. Kate had not slept in 2 days. Empty coffee cups surrounded her workstation as she stared at the test results on her screen. Alan entered the lab and placed a fresh cup beside her. You need to rest, he said gently. Kate rubbed her eyes. Look at these numbers, Alan. The cellular regeneration rate in the cubs increases by 400% when they're in physical contact with humans. 400%. That's not just significant. It's revolutionary. Alan studied the data. Evidence was clear. Something about human proximity was dramatically accelerating the healing process in Vextari cubs. How is this possible? He asked. Kate pulled up another screen showing a complex pattern. I think it's our bioelectric field. All living things generate one, but human fields have a unique frequency pattern. When Vextari tissue is exposed to it, their cells respond as if they've been given a powerful growth stimulus. Melissa joined them, looking over Kate's shoulder at the data. So we're like living medicine for them? More like catalysts, Kate explained. Their bodies do the healing. We just speed up the process dramatically. A wound that would take months to heal happens in days when they're around us. Alan sat down, considering the implications. So the Vextari figured this out. They know something about human biology that we didn't even know ourselves. And they've been watching us, Melissa added. Learning about us. That's why they brought their cubs here when they were injured or sick. The door to the lab slid open, and Lieutenant Gregg walked in. Time's up, doctors. What have you got for me? Kate explained their findings, showing Gregg the data that proved human bioelectric fields accelerated Vextari healing by an extraordinary rate. So they're using us, Gregg said flatly. It's more complex than that, Alan argued. Yes, they're bringing their cubs to us because of our healing effect. But think about what this means. They're trusting us with their young. For a predatory species, that's an incredible sign of, if not friendship, then at least recognition. Gregg crossed his arms. While they're still hunting our people outside the settlements, we don't know if it's the same groups, Kate pointed out. Vextari might have different factions or tribes. Some may see us as prey, others as healers. Or maybe they just see us as useful in different ways, Melissa suggested. They're intelligent. They can hold complex ideas. Before Gregg could respond, his comm unit buzzed. Well, here, he answered. His expression changed as he listened. I'll be right there. He looked at the 3 scientists. We have visitors. Important ones. They followed Gregg to the command center, where a video call was waiting. On the large screen was Admiral Joe Harper, head of Galactic Command's Xener Relations Division. Doctors, the Admiral nodded. Your reports have caused quite a stir. We've sent copies to our allies in the Galactic Council. The Nuvari are particularly interested. Alan was surprised. The Nuvari were one of the oldest spacefaring species, known for their advanced biological sciences. They rarely showed interest in human affairs. Why are the Nuvari interested in our situation? He asked. Because, Admiral Harper explained, if humans really do have unique bioelectric properties that affect other species, it changes your value to the galactic community. Several species are now requesting human medical personnel for their worlds. Kate leaned forward. Sir, we've only confirmed the effect with Vextari. We don't know if it works on other species. The Nuvari seem to think it will, Harper replied. They're sending a scientific delegation to Nova Terra. They'll arrive in 3 days. After the call ended, Greg turned to the scientists. Looks like your cubs are staying longer than a week after all. The next morning, Alan and Kate were preparing a cub for testing when they noticed something unusual. The little Vextari was watching them with unusual focus, its eyes tracking their movements with clear intelligence. This one's different, Alan noted. More aware. Kate checked the records. It's been here longest, almost fully healed now. The cub made a series of clicks and rumbles, then pointed to itself with a claw. Is it ... trying to communicate? Melissa asked. Joining them, Alan activated the xenolinguistic program on his tablet. It had been gathering Vextari sounds for weeks, trying to find patterns. Let's see if this helps. He held the tablet toward the cub. Can you understand us? He asked slowly. The tablet translated his words into a series of clicks and rumbles. The cub's eyes widened, and it responded with similar sounds. The tablet displayed healers, help many, grateful. The 3 humans stared in amazement. It worked, Kate whispered. We're actually communicating. The cub continued, its claws moving in patterns as it vocalized. The translation appeared, others come. Learn of healers. Want peace? Others? Alan asked. More Vextari? The cub's response translated as leaders, elders, come soon. Greg had been watching from the doorway. Are you telling me we're about to have adult Vextari asking to enter our settlement? The same creatures that have killed our people? Before anyone could answer, alarms began to sound throughout the outpost. The security system had detected movement at the perimeter. Lots of movement. They rushed to the command center where the screens showed dozens of adult Vextari gathering at the edge of the forest. Unlike previous encounters, these Vextari wore decorated armor and carried staffs rather than weapons. What are they doing? Greg demanded. I think, Alan said slowly, they're sending a delegation, just like the Nuvari. One Vextari, larger than the others and wearing elaborate markings, stepped forward. It raised its arms in what appeared to be a peaceful gesture. We need to respond, Kate said urgently. This could be our chance to establish real communication. Greg hesitated, then nodded. Fine, but at the first sign of aggression, my people will open fire. Alan, Kate, and Melissa walked to the fence, their hearts pounding. The future of human Vextari, relations, and perhaps humanity's new role in the galaxy was about to be determined. The large Vextari with elaborate markings waited as Alan, Kate, and Melissa approached the fence. Security personnel lined the perimeter, weapons ready but not raised. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Alan held up the tablet with the translation program. We come in peace, he said slowly. We have cared for your young. The tablet converted his words to Vextari sounds. The leader listened, then responded with a series of complex clicks and rumbles. The translation appeared. We know. The healers have returned as promised. Alan looked at Kate in confusion. Returned? I don't understand. The Vextari leader made a gesture, and another member of the delegation stepped forward. This one carried what looked like an ancient stone tablet covered in markings. The alien held it up for the humans to see. Kate, look at those symbols, Melissa whispered. Some of them look almost ... human. The leader spoke again. Your kind walked our world long ago. The ancient ones. The soft-skinned healers who came from the stars. Alan shook his head. That's not possible. Humans didn't have space travel until a few centuries ago. The translation of the Vextarius response was simple. Others brought you. Before they could discuss this further, a new alarm sounded. A ship was approaching the planet, and it wasn't human. The sleek vessel that appeared in the sky had the distinctive curved design of Nuvari architecture. The Nuvari delegation is early, Greg said over the comm. They're requesting permission to land near your position. The Vextari looked up at the ship and for the first time showed signs of agitation. The leader made sharp, quick sounds. The translation read, "The Watchers come. They know you have remembered." Remembered what? Kate asked. But the Vextari were backing away from the fence as the Nuvari ship descended. The ship landed in the Yavi, clearing between the forest and the fence. Its doors opened and 3 tall, slender aliens emerged. The Nuvari had pale blue skin and large almond-shaped eyes. They moved with fluid grace as they approached. "Greetings, humans of Nova Terra," the lead Nuvari said in perfect English. "I am Senior Scientist Keel. We came as soon as we received your data about the Vextari cubs." Alan stepped forward. "We welcome you, but we're in the middle of a first contact situation with the Vextari." Keel's eyes shifted to the Vextari delegation at the forest edge. "Not first contact, Dr. Pierce. The Vextari and humans have met before. Long ago. That's what they just told us," Kate said. "But that's impossible." "Not impossible," Keel replied. "Just forgotten. By your kind, at least." The Nuvari scientist explained that over 10,000 years ago, early humans had been brought to several worlds across the galaxy, including the Vextari homeworld. This was done by an ancient species called the progenitors, who had been studying various developing species. The progenitors discovered something remarkable about primitive humans, Keel continued. Your bioelectric field had unique properties that affected other life forms. On the Vextari world, the progenitors established a colony of humans who helped heal injured Vextari. Like a biological experiment? Melissa asked, disturbed by the idea. More like a symbiotic relationship, Keel corrected. The humans healed the Vextari, and the Vextari protected the humans from other predators. The Vextari leader had cautiously approached again. It made a series of sounds that the tablet translated as, "The bond was broken when the sky fire came. The healers left in the ships of light, but they promised to return." "A meteor strike," Keel explained. "The progenitors evacuated the human colony. The Vextari civilization was set back thousands of years, but they never forgot. They passed down the legend of the healers, who would one day return from the stars." Alan struggled to process this information. "So when we colonized Nova Terra, the Vextari recognized what you were," Keel finished. "Not the individuals, of course, but what you represented. The legendary healers of their mythology." Kate shook her head in amazement. "That's why they started bringing us their cubs. They remembered something about us that we had completely forgotten about ourselves." While they talked, a small group of researchers had arrived from the outpost. Among them was Olivia Daniels, an archaeologist who had been studying local ruins. "Dr. Pierce," she called out, excitement in her voice. "You need to see this right away." Olivia showed them images on her tablet. They were photographs of cave paintings she had discovered in an abandoned Vextari settlement. The ancient images clearly showed bipedal figures with no scales standing alongside Vextari cubs. The human-like figures had their hands on the cubs, and the artists had painted a golden glow around the point of contact. "These paintings are at least 8,000 years old," Olivia explained. "I thought they were just symbolic, but now ... The Vextari leader made a sound that caught everyone's attention. It pointed to the cubs in the medical facility, visible through the windows, then to the adult Vextari waiting at the forest edge. The translation came through. "Our young are healed. We would have them return to us now." Alan looked at Greg, who had joined them at the fence. After a moment's hesitation, Greg nodded. Tell them we'll return the cubs that are fully healed. He said. The message was translated, and the Vextari leader made what appeared to be a gesture of thanks. As they prepared to return the first group of cubs, Kate pulled Alan aside. Do you realize what this means? Humans aren't just new players in galactic society. We have abilities that make us valuable to other species. Alan nodded. And the Vextari knew it before we did. They remembered what we had forgotten. Keel approached. There is much more to learn about human bioelectric properties. The Nuvari Council is proposing a joint research initiative. We believe your healing abilities may work on many species, not just the Vextari. As the sun began to set over Nova Terra, the first healed cubs were brought to the fence. The exchange was about to begin, opening a new chapter in the relationship between humans and the fearsome predators who had, against all odds, remembered an ancient promise. 6 months had passed since the first meeting with the Vextari delegation. Nova Terra had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Where once there had been a single human outpost surrounded by dangerous alien forest, now there was a thriving joint settlement. Humans and Vextari worked side by side, each bringing their unique strengths to the partnership. Alan walked through the new medical center that had been built between the original human outpost and the Vextari village. The building combined human technology with Vextari architectural styles, resulting in a structure unlike anything on Earth or any human colony. "Morning, Dr. Pierce," called a young nurse as she carried supplies down the hallway. "Morning, Lisa," Alan replied with a smile. "Busy day ahead?" "The healing rooms are fully booked. We have visitors from 3 different systems waiting to see if the human touch works for their species too." This had become the new normal on Nova Terra. After word spread about the unique healing properties of human bioelectric fields, the once remote colony had become a center for interspecies medicine. Representatives from dozens of alien civilizations had arrived to see if humans could help heal their sick or injured. Kate met Alan in the research lab, where she was reviewing data with 2 Nuvari scientists. "The results from the Jorvian patients are promising," she said, showing him a chart. "Their cellular regeneration increased by nearly 200% with sustained human contact. Not as dramatic as the Vextari response, but still significant." Alan nodded. "Any progress with the bioelectric field replicator?" Kate shook her head. "The Nuvari are still working on it, but they can't seem to create an artificial field that produces the same effect. There's something about living human tissue that makes the difference." This discovery had transformed humanity's place in the galactic community. Once seen as newcomers with little to offer more advanced civilizations, humans were now valued for their unique biological properties. Medical personnel from Earth were in high demand across known space. Outside the medical center, Alan spotted Melissa teaching a group of human doctors how to maximize their healing effect through focused meditation. Research had shown that humans could learn to consciously strengthen their bioelectric fields with practice. "The key is to visualize the energy flowing from your core, through your arms and into your hands," Melissa explained to the group. "When you feel the warmth building in your palms, you're ready to begin the healing session." Alan continued his walk to the diplomatic building where Greg, now promoted to commander, was meeting with the Vextari Elder Council. Relations between humans and Vextari had improved dramatically, though not without challenges. The hunting of humans had stopped entirely, but cultural differences still caused occasional tension. As Alan entered the building, he heard Greg's voice from the meeting room. "We understand your traditional hunting grounds include the Eastern Valley, but our scientists need access to study the plant life there. Perhaps we can arrange scheduled times for each activity?" The lead Vextari elder, whom the humans had come to know as Shar, responded with clicks and rumbles that the translator converted to words. "This is acceptable." The hunt can wait for the time of the second moon. Your healers have earned this consideration. Greg noticed Alan at the door and waved him in. Dr. Pierce, perfect timing. The council has approved your request for a joint expedition to the ancient ruins. Alan had been waiting for this permission for weeks. The ruins Olivia had discovered contained more evidence of the early human presence on Nova Terra, and possibly clues about the mysterious progenitors who had brought them there. After the meeting, Alan found Kate in the nursery, where newly healed Vextari cubs played under the watchful eyes of both human and Vextari caretakers. One small cub approached Alan and made a greeting gesture they had taught the young ones. They learned so quickly, Kate remarked, and they seem to genuinely like being around us, beyond just the healing effect. The Vextari elders say there. Cubs are developing faster and showing higher intelligence when raised with human interaction, Alan said. Our bioelectric fields might be doing more than just healing. They might be stimulating neural development too. A soft chime sounded throughout the settlement, indicating an incoming ship. Alan and Kate walked outside to see a large Earth vessel descending toward the landing pad. The new medical team from Earth, Kate said, just in time for the expansion. The settlement on Nova Terra had become the model for a new kind of colony, one where humans and alien species lived together in a symbiotic relationship. Similar projects were now being planned on a dozen worlds. As they watched the ship land, Shar approached them. The massive Vextari elder had become a friend over the months of working together. Shar made a series of sounds that had become familiar, enough that Alan didn't need the translator to understand the general meaning. Yes, more healers have arrived, he confirmed. And next week, the first group of Vextari hunters will leave with the human expedition to the Centauri system. This, too, was part of the new arrangement. While humans provided healing, Vextari offered protection. Human expeditions to dangerous worlds now brought Vextari warriors as guardians, their natural hunting abilities providing security that no human military could match. The ship's doors opened, and the new arrivals stepped out, looking around, with wonder at the mixed settlement of humans and fearsome predator aliens living in harmony. A young doctor approached Alan with wide eyes. Dr. Pierce, I've read all your papers on the healing effect. Is it really true that the Vextari knew about our abilities before we did? Alan smiled. Sometimes it takes someone else to remind us of our own strengths. The Vextari remembered something about humanity that we had forgotten. As the sun set over Nova Terra, humans and Vextari gathered in the central plaza for the weekly community meal. Once deadly enemies, they now sat side by side, each species bringing their unique gifts to a partnership that was changing the galaxy. Alan watched as a Vextari cub placed its small clawed hand trustingly in the palm of a human child. The simple gesture represented everything they had learned, that sometimes the greatest strength isn't the power to hunt or kill, but the ability to heal and nurture life.